Welcome to It Feels Like Home, the podcast where real life stories contain moments of faith. I'm Lisa Shudell, and I'm here to share stories of God moments. Whether you're listening on your morning drive, taking a walk, or folding laundry, I hope you find comfort and encouragement. Welcome to the podcast. Today is June 4th, 2026. It's a special day for me because it's my wedding anniversary.
Yay!
Hey, yes, thank you. John and I have been married 32 years, and
Okay.
thank you. And I am so excited to have you on the podcast, Chris. This is Christopher Barfield, and
Yep.
he's a ministry he's going to share with us. And I'm going to begin by just asking you to introduce yourself, kind of tell us where you call home, about your family, and what you're doing with your days.
Okay. So my name is Christopher Barfield Sr. I have 3 children. My home is in Woodstock, Georgia, even though I was born and raised in East Cobb, Marietta. And so I live now borderline Milton, Alpharetta, Woodstock area. I'm a community engagement director for Vision Warriors. We're a Christ-centered transitional home for men in recovery from drugs and alcohol. And so, yeah, that's what I kind of do with my days. Each day kind of looks a little different depending on which hat I get to wear that day. And sometimes I'm out in the community meeting people, seeing how we can best spread share the burden in the community. Some days I'm doing yard work and landscaping around the house. Some days I'm just being a dad because I'm a single father of a 4-year-old right now as well.
Okay. Wow. You got your hands full. How old are your children?
So I got one that's 21 that's about to be 22, one that's 17, and then I have my youngest one who's 4, about to be 5 in July.
Aw, sweet. Okay, well,
Yep.
great. So just, I usually ask how we're connected. You probably know, I reached out to Erica Schneider
Yep.
because someone suggested I reach out to her to be on this podcast. And she said, you have to interview Christopher. So that's all I really know. I didn't know what you did or what your story was, but
Yep.
Erica thought that you would be a great addition to this podcast. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Love
So
her. She's a great lady.
she is. I used to work with her at Keller Williams, but she went to a different brokerage, so we miss
Okay.
her. So anyway, I guess the next question would be, when you were growing up, what was were you in the church? Like, do you remember when you kind of learned about God and when you kind of, made that a priority in your life?
Yeah. So I grew up in the church. I grew up at Powers Ferry United Methodist Church. It is no longer there, unfortunately, but it's where I grew up. Concept of God was, he was kind of like this distant figure, but he was also this friend, but he was also to me at the same time, like I loved, he was like this total stranger, I was like, how do I describe that? Because I grew up, but I didn't have a faith of my own.
Right.
I felt like at some point I was kind of ushered into the faith. Like church was something we did on Sundays and Wednesdays, and then all the events, and then going to youth group and morning Bible school. I mean Sunday school, and like these are just things we did. And so I had this concept of God, like I kept hearing everyone talk about him, but I had no clue who he was.
So when was the first time you felt like God wasn't just a concept, but real?
He was that was easy to pinpoint. That was in 1998. That was at Lake Junaluska. We were on a youth retreat, and we did this thing. It was kind of it was my second time going to Lake Junaluska. Like we did this every summer, and I remember at the end of the worship night on the last night there, we'd walk up. We'd leave the sanctuary area, and then we'd walk up this hill, this kind of mountain hill valley, whatever, or mountain hill, whatever it was, and into this section that had like an amphitheater built around a cross, stone amphitheater. And I remember the gentleman Eddie Willis was playing the guitar. I can't tell you what song he was playing. It was just kind of soft music in the background, totally like a Hallmark moment, you know. And I was like, I felt this tugging in my life, and I was like, all right, God. Jesus, will you come into my heart? And so falling tears, all the things. And yeah, that was my first encounter with the Lord.
Wow. That's awesome
So,
that you remember that moment, right?
yeah.
So the subject of this podcast is like God stories and like when God speaks to you or gives you direction. Can you describe a specific moment other than that one you just shared where you felt like God clearly opened a door or intervened in your life and provided exactly what you needed?
Yeah. so many times because hindsight's always 2020. I can look back and be like, "Oh, God moved right there. God moved right there." So one of the things I think I want to dig into just real quick, give you a brief backstory is like, so that summer happened and I came back from, and I had Jesus on my mind, right? And in my heart, but I didn't get what the term discipled. Now I understand it's discipled now. And so I kind of just went back to school. Some hard times came up. One of my friends from youth group that I'd grown up with in church killed himself. I became very at that moment very angry at God. How could you take my friend from me? Somebody was telling me, hell, he's in hell because he committed the ultimate sin. And I'm like, and so just further through sand on this fire. And so next thing you know, one of the guys comes around and just offers me some drugs. He's like, you want to try this? And I'm like, what is it? And he said, it's LSD. And so I was like, sure. And I tried it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I was numb and I had arrived. So this starts a 24-year long drug addiction in the process. And so in that process, I believe I've seen God move multiple times, right? He's intervened multiple times. One time I can be specific that I knew that he had intervened in my life. Is the big that he I had this group of friends that I hung out with, two friends particularly, and I'll just call it Steve and Anka. All right. And then I remember getting caught for drugs. This was some years later. I was 21 years old at the time, or 21 years old at the time. I get caught with some drugs. Well, Steve and Anka were my two best friends. We were always together. If I wasn't with Steven and Anka, then Anka was with me, or how the trifecta went. One of us was always with the other.
Uh-huh.
And so I go to jail for some drugs. I'm sitting in jail and I'm sitting there and I hear on the TV, I'll never forget that day, that body identified as Anka, uh, body found identified as Anka. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. That's a unique name. And so I went and turned up the TV and looked at it. And I'm sitting there and realized one of my best friend had been murdered.
Oh my gosh.
So a couple years later, I go to prison for these drugs and gun charge. I get out, and I'm hanging out with Steven and I'm going to work and I'm seeing him all the time. And then all of a sudden one day I get a phone call. Hey, the feds just arrested Steven. They just came in and arrested Steven. Well, Steven wasn't doing anything at this time. He gotten out of that lifestyle a couple years before this. But
Mhm.
from during that time period, they came back and they got him for conspiracy to traffic drugs across state lines and ended up sending him to prison for 17 and a half years. Um, but I remember in that moment, at that time, I was like, why is it like that it showed up? God separated me in that moment from those two in that season, and he intervened in my life to keep me from going. I could either be dead with her, or I could have went to federal prison for a very long time.
Uh-huh.
And seeing, like, I remember God opening my eyes and showing me that. I'm still, mind you, at this time, I'm still not digging. I'm still not very Christ following. All right. I'm still very much in my flesh. So,
Right. Wow. So from there, how did you end up in the ministry that you do now?
well, that's funny because I once again I went through this with Stephen Goes to Prison. I end up going just living this lifestyle, drugs and alcohol and women and all the things my flesh could have desired, and I ended up going to prison a couple more times. But I remember one day specifically, jail was like always my go-to of like where to open my Bible
Hmm.
and where the Lord would start, where I would really study on His Word and dig into it. And then people called it jailhouse religion. You get out, you leave all that stuff behind. I remember
Uh-huh.
one time while I was in there, I looked down and I'm in Douglas County Jail, and I looked down and I'm looking at all the people doing all the things below me. And I'm like, God, don't let all this. I remember just a simple prayer: God, don't let all this be for nothing. Like, I, and so later that night, I ended up going to sleep and getting woken up with this vision of ministry that I would be in one day. I didn't know how it was going to come to be. And so, anyway, back and forth to prison a couple more times. I did 5 trips to prison, 11 years altogether, just so you know.
Wow.
So I get out in 2020. I decided I'm going to stop using drugs. I'm just going to drink alcohol because I never had a problem with alcohol. It was always the drugs that led me back.
Uh-huh.
And so this will kind of cover some of our other things that you might that we had talked about. But as We I would start drinking. So this is in June of 2020. I never had a problem with alcohol, is what I told myself. And so within 18 months, I had 3 DUIs.
Wow.
Mind you, I'm on probation at this time for my last prison charge, which was sent me on put had me 10 years probation. So I served 3. I've been out for a year and a half. So let's just say I've been at 5 years. So I had 5 years hanging over my head. And I'm sitting in Cherokee County Jail. It is no, May 24th of 2022. It's my daughter's 13th birthday. On the 25th, I'm getting ready to go to court, and the 26th is my oldest son's high school graduation. And so there I'm sitting on the 24th, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I feel about this big, right? Because once again, dad's not there for his children, and I'm there to see my little girl turn 13, which is a big deal because she's stepping into womanhood. I'm about to miss my oldest son's high school graduation, and then this time I'd already had Christian, who's my youngest, and he was in DFACS custody, and so I just felt like a complete failure. And at that time, I kind of was. I remember that night I went to my cell and I hit my knees and I cried out for the very first time, like really cried out, not just like, God, get me out of this. I say it was the prayer of surrender,
Uh-huh.
because it was like, God, whatever you want to do tomorrow. And I meant it. Like, if you want to send me back to prison, send me. Like, but just, God, whatever you want to do tomorrow, never let me forget this pain right here. Right. I didn't want to ever feel like that ever again. And so I get up the next day, I go to court. By the grace of God, there's a sit-in judge, there's sit-in DA, sit-in probation officer, like everybody who's normally in the courtroom wasn't. The judge in that courtroom had told me beforehand if he ever saw me come back in, he was going to reprimand me back into state custody, and he wasn't there that day. And so, by God's grace, that day they reinstated my probation with some stipulations. But I was able to get out that day. I made it home for my son's graduation. I got to see my daughter at my son's graduation,
Wow.
and there it is, right? So you asked me how I got into this ministry, and it's a long story, but I just want to be able to cover the
Yeah.
bases. They got me here because I feel like I wouldn't be here without each and every single one of them.
Uh-huh.
And so I go home, I get to spend those days with my kids, and within a couple of days, I'm back in my parents' basement. I'm living in the place where I'd always used and drank. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go party one night, and I got a bottle of liquor and went out with the girl, and got drunk that night. This is going to be just a one-time thing. That one-time thing turned into the next day and the next day and the next day. I'm drinking and drinking and drinking, and I can't remember exactly how many days it was. I was on this little bender, but I
Uh-huh.
can remember the moment that it stopped. Right, and I was sitting there in my parents' basement. It was June 10th of 2022 at 10:22 in the morning.
Wonderful.
I was reaching for the bottle of Commodore vodka that I had shoved in between my nightstand and my bed, hidden from my mom so she wouldn't see it if she walked in. And as I reached for the bottle, for the very first time in my life, I heard this. I call it an audible voice,
Uh-huh.
but it was more than that. It's like it was on a cellular level. Like I heard, "Is this what I delivered you for?"
Wow.
And it was like that kid being caught by his father doing that thing that he's told not to do time and time and time again. And I knew I was about to have my butt handed to me. And I was terrified. I call it the moment God instilled the fear of the Lord into my heart. And I remember picking up the bottle, and I remember going to the bathroom, and I remember pouring it down the drain, shaking. And I picked up my phone and I called the 2 guys that I knew I could call. Um, and knowing I needed help, and they're like, all right, let's get you to Vision Warriors." And so on June 10th of 2022, I I put the bottle down. I came to Vision Warriors. I did not get in that day because I was still failing the drug screens, but I kept coming back every day. Every time there was a meeting, every time the doors were open, I kept coming back, and they kept screening me. And finally, one day it was June 23rd of 22, like 13 days later, I finally passed. And so they gave me a bed, and that's where the real journey of how I ended up here began.
Okay. Wow. So what is your role there?
So I did the community engagement. So I go and help people in the community. see how Vision Warriors can best serve the people in the community as well as large. Like we do a lot of outreach with the city of Alpharetta and the Rotary Club, or we do a lot of things with like Erica, Never Alone, love them, Forever Fed. We Papa's Pantry or Encompass Ministries, just wherever nonprofits helping other
Mm,
nonprofits, anywhere that we can pitch in. And that was one of the things that, I told you, God gave me this vision. So he gave me the vision. I'd be working in a ministry, working with guys and serving and raising my children so they would see that this is what it's about. It's about getting up and giving it away. That's one of our things each day. I can't keep what I have unless I'm willing to give it away for free.
nice. Wow. That's a great story. So I'm looking at my questions, trying to decide what
Yes.
I want to ask you next.
Yeah, I there's still so much
Uh-huh.
more.
Yeah. Well, why don't you just keep sharing? Like, just share a few times that, same, like more examples of where you felt like God either spoke to you or
Mm.
nudged you that made a, shift in what you're doing.
So, okay, so there's 2 that come to mind when you say that. Both of them happened to me early in recovery, early at Vision Warriors. So, after I had that encounter in my parents' basement, I had this hunger and this zeal, like a 10-minute devotional and before I head out the door isn't gonna be enough because I tried that, right? And I was like, I just had this longing and this. So when I first got to Vision Warriors, I was doing the 10-minute devotionals before I went out the door for work, and this lasted for about a week or so. And I'm like, I'm gonna 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And next thing you know, I'm up at 4 o'clock or 4:30 in the morning, and it's still not enough. And I remember I felt this tugging, this unctioning. It wasn't the loud voice; it was more like a small whisper, right? It was like
Uh,
3:30. That's all I heard. That's the only thing I got. 3:30, and I'm like,
yeah.
"You want me up at 3:30? I'm gonna get up at 3:30." Yeah. I remember that next morning, I was like, I went to bed. I hurried up and I went to bed at night. I was in bed by 9 o'clock that night. I was ready to go to sleep, and the alarm went off at 3:30 in the morning. And I quietly said to myself, I was like, I don't want to get up.
Mm,
And I heard that audible, still small voice again, that whisper. It's like, I didn't want to go to the cross.
mm,
And I tell you, you've never seen a man jump up out of bed so quickly in your entire life. Like I was up, I was down the hallway, and this started the season where every morning I was up at 3:30. I was in the sanctuary by 4 o'clock in the morning. I was on my knees praying, searching the Word of God, doing Bible studies and studying, just anything that I could get. Throughout my day, I stayed listening to podcasts. I stayed listening to commentaries, anything I could do to get the word of God, because it tells us in the word, it says faith comes by hearing and hearing from the word of God. And so I just, any way I could get it in, and it just drastically changed my relationship, my concept, the way that I moved and functioned. And then the second one was in that same period. I'm already getting up at 3:30 in the morning. I can't remember if I was 3 or 4 months in Division Warriors, but it was more of a nightmare, a terrifying. But I woke up to the sound of that same voice I now know very well. He's saying, "Don't be upset with how I take from your family."
mm,
And at that moment, my one of my I'm adopted, so when you hear I had 2 moms, one who raised me and my biological mom. Both of them were mom because both of them were near and dear to me. But my biological mom was having liver problems at that time
uh-huh.
and going back and forth to the doctor. And, I'm still fighting this defects case plan at that moment for my son, Christian. And I'm playing with the idea like, do I give him up for adoption or do I really stick this thing out? Because, you know, my mentality is like, your track record proves that you're going to fail again. That's the voice. That's the whisper I kept hearing. I'm like, no, it's like, I just knew in my spirit I had to go for him. And I'll get maybe to that later, but anyway, so don't be upset with who I take from your family. I'm thinking my mom could go, my kid could go. I'm looking for these things. So the next morning, called my buddy Brody. I called Braden and Mandy. I called these people and let them know, hey, this is what happened. This is a dream I had last night. This is what I woke up to this morning. Just in case something happens, I don't want anybody to think I'm tripping. I'm telling y'all this now. And so I'm kind of on edge about it for a little while. And then a couple weeks go by, nothing. A couple months go by, nothing. Okay. I really forgot about it.
Uh,
Then December 5th of 24. I got a call from my oldest son. Hey, they're taking Nana to the hospital. It doesn't look good. And I said, I'm on my way. I called Mandy. I hit my knees and prayed with her. Then I ran down to the house and I don't have a license right now. But I said, somebody please get me to the hospital. Mom's on her way to the the ambulance just took my mom to the hospital. Please get me down there. They got me down there. I met my dad. Me and my dad crossed paths in the foyer. They usher me and him back to this room outside the trauma unit or wherever they take the emergency cases. And I remember that doctor coming out that day and he given us the news, mom had passed. But in that moment, that voice, that still small voice came over me and said, don't be upset with who I take from your family.
Wow.
So years before he took her, he was preparing for her, for me, he was preparing my heart. He was preparing me to be ready for that moment. And so those are the two moments that come to mind, like, how he spoke to me.
Wow.
So, and I've had a peace over it. I miss mom.
Yeah,
There's days I still miss mom,
of
but
course.
there was a time when like, did I even grieve? Because there's just been this sense of
Right.
peace. So it's good.
That is good. You started saying something else, and then you said, "Well, maybe I'll cover that later." Do you remember
Yeah.
what it was?
So my son Christian, he's now 4. When it started this process, he was in DFAC. I was telling you, he was in DFAC's custody, and
Uh-huh.
I've kind of covered how God speaks to me audibly,
Uh-huh.
um, in the loud voice. Sometimes when I'm not listening, like when I was drinking, or the still small whispers when he knows I'm there, and I just need a soft voice. But then in and through the circumstances, right?
Right.
Christian, I was like, I didn't know. I remember my stepfather asking me, my son was living with them at the time, my stepfather and my mom. And he asked me one day, he's like, are you sure this is what you want to do? And I'm like, no, I'm not sure if this is what I want to do, but every fiber in me is like, once again, I knew this is what I need to do.
Right.
I need to go after my son. I can't have him growing up without his father. I already have 2 children that have done that because of my years in and out of addiction or in and out of prison and through addiction. And I don't know how I'm going to do it, but this is what we're going to do. So anyway, come along. We're going down this journey of DFAC's case plan, and I complete all the things, and I pass all the drug screens and the psychological evaluations and all the tests and all the things. I do I jump through the ringer, and it comes time, and there's like for him to come home. Like I've done all the things and I'm like, what am I going to do? They're telling me I have to have a home. I'm 9 months sober at this point.
Uh,
And I'm like, I look at the guys here and I'm like, hey guys, this is where I'm at. Either I have to give him up for adoption, sign my rights away, or I got to move out of Vision Warriors because
uh,
I got to have my kid. And I don't know how I'm going to live with either one of those choices.
right.
Because I was at 9 months sober, definitely not ready to try to go and be a single father by myself without my community of people around me. I can see that now, God intervening. He opened up there was, we had what we have is the family suite now. It was the house, we have a parish house on our main campus property, and it was already here. It was already a 3-bedroom, finished in basement, but just needed a couple revamping and get it modern or updated because it had been dated for a child. And so we looked at Kurt said, our founders like, hey man, if it's going to be you getting your kid back, we have this up here. If you're interested in it's an option. I said, what do we got to do? Said we just need to be able to take care of sprucing it up a little bit so it's suitable for your kid. I said, that's awesome. So everything along that way, that was in 2024. I mean, into 2023, beginning of 2024, we started sprucing this up, but God provided every little thing for that. All the materials, whatever, anything there, even down to the furniture. I had a call one day from my mentor, and he said, "Hey man, can you meet me in Kennesaw tomorrow?" I'm like, "I mean, I got to work, dude." Yeah, I mean, that's kind of short notice. What's going on? He's like, "Hey, man, I got somebody from church he wants to bless you." And so I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, he wants you to come to his warehouse. He's a furniture distributor, and he wants you to pick out your furniture for the apartment."
Wow.
And so I went down there and literally I furnished I furnished 2 bedrooms, a living room, a kitchen, a bathroom, and an office. I got to run through it like the kid winning the shopping spree as a kid. And I mean, at Toys R Us, like I literally got to pick whatever I wanted. And the
Wow.
guy reminded me in that moment, he said, I just want you to know that when you see this furniture, it's not a me to you, but it's a God sees you type deal. And so it's like, fast forward just a little bit longer, we get the furniture, everything's finished. Christian's first day home, first overnight with me, or not overnight, but first day home with me was on Good Friday of 2024.
Okay.
So
Wow.
even down to the day, God's always been like, here, I'm here, here. He's just showing me his goodness and his faithfulness. In the process of getting it ready, I'm like, how long is it going to take? Because it's everybody working on it was doing it for free. It's when volunteers can show up, it's volunteers show up. And it's like,
Right.
I was ready now. I felt like I was ready now, but God was waiting, showing me, no, I have the perfect time for you.
Uh,
And it's just those moments.
wow. So that's awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough for sharing your story.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me. If this episode encouraged you, I hope it felt like home. Remember that you're not alone. And if someone came to your mind while listening, please share this podcast. Take care and God bless.